Our world was rocked by the news that the Supreme Court of the State of Israel ruled that there's no more exemption for yeshiva students from joining the military. To clarify, my understanding is that this is less a political decision than a narrow legal one, like many of the decisions of the Supreme Court here in the United States, which people perceive as political, but most of the time are narrow legal questions. There was an agreement reached between, I think, the Chazon Ish and Ben Gurion way back when the state was founded to exempt the yeshiva students from joining the military. That law expired, and so on the current the laws that are on the books, the Supreme Court was asked to decide whether the draft applies to yeshiva students, and based on the law on the books, it was unanimous. There's not a question about that. But it creates a tremendous internal conflict within the Jewish world, within the frum world. And some frame this conflict as about the value of Torah study. But I think it's not the core issue. I think people understand the value of Torah study. Maybe not agreement on exactly what that value, how much that value is. But the core issue, I think, is about the tension. It's not a new issue. It's a tension that we all deal with between bitachon and hishtadlus. We have to put in effort. We have to have a military. But how much? How many soldiers do we need? We have to have bitachon, then Hashem will take care of us. But we can't just have only bitachon and leave the borders unguarded. And it cannot be a coincidence that this conflict is ripped open for the first time in our lifetimes, perhaps the biggest internal conflict, civil conflict in Israel's history. On the week of Parsha Shelach, the very first military effort to take the land of Israel in the Torah. And we find that the Meraglim were confronted with these very same tensions, this very same conflict. The Meraglim were coming from a world of pure bitachon, a world of kol Yaakov. They were literally living in the clouds, in the midbar. Their enemies' weapons were absorbed by the clouds. The lechem, the man came min hashamayim, straight from heaven. The clothing that they wore grew with them. They had no physical needs, no physical hishtadlus whatsoever. But that's about to change. Now they need to go into the land. They need to leave the clouds, leave the shamayim, and go to the aretz. And it is an entirely new mode of operating. You're telling us we have to conquer the enemy, and we have to plant wheat and till the soil and grind it into flour and make bread. Well, in that world of hishtadlus, where is God? And if we're just operating purely on the natural, physical laws, then we have some questions. How are we going to go and take the land? We're outnumbered. We're outgunned. They're stronger than us. They're bigger than us. This is the core chet of the Meraglim, was not being able to see bitachon in a world of hishtadlus. But it's something that we can understand. And then when they said, we're going to go and Moshe said, no, it is time to go. They said, well, let's go. And Moshe said, now is not the time. And if Hashem is not with you, you're not going to succeed. Because when it comes to conquering the land of Eretz Yisrael, there's even a heavier thumb on the scale of the bitachon side than the normal hishtadlus, the normal balance. The pasuk, the Sfas Emes brings the pasuk in Lech Lecha, back when Hashem first promised to Avram Avinu, you're going to get this land. He was described as El Ha'aretz Asher Ar'eka. It's the land that I will show you. That is the bedrock of our relationship, the yachas of the Klal Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael, is through Hashem. It's the land that I will show. When I show it to you, you have it. When I don't show it to you, you don't. Famous story about a Jewish West Point cadet who was studying military strategy, and he noticed that they went through the history of different battles. Napoleon, El Alamein, World War I, World War II, Civil Wars, all great wars throughout history. And there was nothing about the Arab-Israeli conflict, nothing about the military victories in 48, 67, 73. And he asked his instructor, why not? He said, I don't know, ask the general. He asked the general, said, why not? He asked the colonel. He asked the colonel. Colonel says, I wrote the curriculum, what's your question? This Jewish cadet is sure by now this is some kind of anti-Semitism, and they want to scrub Israel from the curriculum. He said, it's nothing to do with that. We're teaching here military strategy. So we teach you battles that impart lessons in tactics and military strategy. The victories in the Israeli campaigns defy strategy. They defy the rules that we teach you. They break all those rules. According to the odds, according to the laws of probability and statistics, those never should have succeeded. It's El Aretz Asher Eretz, when Hashem shows it to us. That's when we have Eretz Yisrael. And this is why, right after the Parashat of the Meraglim, we have the lesson of the Challah. The Challah is to say, Ba'acholchem ilechem ha'aretz, when you eat from the lechem ha'aretz, you're going to go into Eretz Yisrael, and you're going to have this conflict. It's not lechem in Hashemayim anymore. It's lechem in ha'aretz. You're eating the bread of the earth. Whenever does the pasuk say lechem ha'aretz? Basembas hints that is what the pasuk is trying to tell us here. You're lechem ha'aretz, reishis arisoseichem. You're kneading the dough. You're working your yadayim yedei Esav. Where is Hashem? Here's Hashem. Here's how you do it. Reishis arisoseichem torimu challah. The first a bit of your dough, you lift it up. You say, this is from Hashem. And even though I'm putting in my work and my soil, and I'm tilling and I'm kneading and I'm grinding the kernels, but it had to rain. I had to have my health. I had to have this land. And Hashem, just like Hashem provided me for the last 40 years when I was living in the clouds, He's providing for me now. And what I'm doing now is I'm transforming this physical thing into something of kadosh, into something divine. And that is our whole purpose on earth. We were all living in the clouds. As my young 5-year-old likes to say, when she talks about what was happening with our family before she was born, she says, oh, when I was still with Hashem. That's where we all were. That's where neshamas. So what are we doing down here? We were in the clouds with Hashem in Gan Eden. What do we come? We came down here to transform physical into spiritual, to bring kedusha, to bring godliness into this world, to be down in the world of aretz, of yadayim, and to raise things up and to elevate the world around us. And it's never been so apparent that Hashem is in control, that Hashem is running the show. If you just watched the presidential debate Thursday night, or you read about it, you watched one interchange, one back and forth. Not a single substantive, articulate, thoughtful, composed sentence from anyone. Is this all we have? This is not all we have. There are plenty of qualified, smart, competent, thoughtful, well-meaning people in this country. Where are they? Defies all the odds. It doesn't make sense. Couldn't be more clear there's a higher power at work. And so we have to remind ourselves. We've got to engage in our ishtadlus. We've got to keep that bitachon. It is not for us to say how many soldiers are required in Israel and how many students and which students should study in yeshiva. Not for us to say. What we can do for us is to remember to put our hishtadlus, always remembering, always keeping that bitachon, always remembering, no matter what we do, it all comes from Hashem. And the way we act on that is the lesson of the challah, the lesson of the nesachim, is to take that first fruits that we produce, whatever it is that we're doing, say, this is from Hashem, this is for Hashem. I'm dedicated. I recognize that all of this comes from Hashem. That's how we bring godliness into everything that we do and fulfills our mission on earth to be Makadesh, Shem Shamayim, to bring Kedusha all around us.